Hello everyone, this is me Sharon. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to crochet this Lazy Daisy crossbody bag that has a chain strap and a fabric lining. I hope you watch until the end of this video. Right, so for this project, I will be using the Inodphil 4-ply yarn, which can be bought on Shopee. I will add the link of the shop in the description box if you'd like to buy one too. And these are unlabeled yarns and 100% acrylic. And then for the hook, I'll be using the 2.5mm tulip. And you will also be needing some needles, yarn needles for embroidery that we're gonna do for the design later on, and of course we will need a pair of scissors. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. To start, we're going to make a slip knot. So we're going to do a foundation chain first. So after making a slip knot, we're going to chain up until we get to the length that we desire. So in my case, I will be chaining 24, and then after chaining 24, I'll be telling you what to do next. Alright, so I have 24 stitches in total, so that's the length that I want for the crossbody bag that I'm going to make. It's from my phone. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to double the amount. So I'm going to add 24 more chains and then slip stitch into the first chain made to form a ring. Once you double the amount of chains, that will make 48 in total. So after I made 48 chains, the next step is I will slip stitch into the first chain made to form a ring. So we're going to work single crochets in rounds. So the next step is we're going to chain 1 and then work 1 single crochet into the same stitch, 1 single crochet into every stitch around. So that's what we're going to do. It's very easy. Just work 1 single crochet into every stitch until we get back around. Once we get back around, we will keep on working 1 single crochet into every stitch. We can add a stitch marker to mark our first stitch of the next round. So that's what you can do so that you will know when to start the next round. So basically, we're just going to work 1 single crochet into every stitch until we get to the height that we want for our purse or crossbody bag. Now this is what it looks like after doing 40 rounds, and the stitch marker there is where you will start the next round if you're going to continuously work the next round. But this is going to be my final round. As you can see, the last stitch would be the last stitch of this final round that I have made. So the next step is I'm going to chain 1 and then turn. Now into that stitch where I chained 1, that is the first stitch, and I will work 1 single crochet into that, and then 1 single crochet into each of the next 21 stitches. So every row you must have 22 single crochets in total. So I have 22 in total. So I'm going to chain 1 and make a turn and continue working 1 single crochet into every stitch across. Alright, so this flap is almost done, but we're going to work the edging for this flap. So this is the front side, and the last row would be where we're going to do the final round of working stitches to smoothen the edges. So we're going to chain 1 and then turn. Make sure that the side is the front side of the flap, and then into the very first stitch we're going to work 3 single crochets, because this is going to be the corner of our flap, and then 1 single crochet into each stitch across, except when you get to the final stitch we are going to do another increase and we're gonna work 3 single crochets. Once done, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch on this side. So it may be challenging for you, but you can check how I did the single crochets on this side, because you should be able to check where you should be working the stitches. So that will be tricky at first, but once you get used to it, you will see how those stitches will line up. And you're gonna do this on the opposite side, but I'll show you what to do after we finish this side. So we have a stitch marker there, and we will still work 2 more single crochets, and then after that we will be working slip stitches. So 1 slip stitch into each stitch on this other side. So this one is the front side, so where we will usually add the button. So we're gonna work a slip stitch into each stitch until we get to the other side. So now once you get to the last stitch of this side, we're back to the flap where we're going to work single crochets, or 1 single crochet into each single crochet until we get to the last stitch. So usually I cut off the yarn after the last stitch, and then I would insert the needle this way so that I can make another chain on top to make the invisible join. So you can use that in any of your projects, specifically when you're making a beanie. So after this, I will just be weaving the ends. So make sure you leave about 4 inches tail so that the yarn is secured. And then after that, we're going to do some embroidery on this side, this front side, underneath the flap. So you can add as many, but before we close off, we're gonna add some lazy daisies, and I will show you how to make one. This is what it looks like after adding 3 flowers. So I'm gonna show you later how to embroider the lazy daisies. And as you can see, I left the bottom part open because it will be difficult to embroider if you're gonna close out the bottom already. So now I'm flipping the purse because I'm going to close off the bottom now after doing the lazy daisies, and you can do the same if you want. And then after that, I'm going to get the same color of the yarn, and then I'm gonna work single crochets to join the bottom. Make a slip knot, and then into the first 2 stitches of both edges, we're gonna work a stitch. So for each 2 loops on both sides, we're gonna work a single crochet. So 1 single crochet into each of those 2 loops. So we're gonna do that until we get to the end of the row. So now I'm into the last stitch, and I've been using this technique ever since because it makes the bottom part spacier when you're working single crochets versus when you're slip stitching or doing a whip stitch. So after weaving in the ends, this is what it's going to look like. And then once you're satisfied, we're now going to flip it back, and then we're going to do an embroidery on the flap. To start the embroidery, we need a white and yellow yarn. So we need the white for the 8 petals of the lazy daisy flower, and then we're gonna need a yellow for the center. So you can check how I insert the needle into the center. I left about 2 inches at the bottom. So just insert the needle where you want the flower to be. That will be the center of the flower. So at the bottom, I left about 2 to 3 inches, and then just take a look at how I inserted the needle, and then I wrapped the yarn under the needle this way, and then we just made our first petal. And then I will be inserting the needle back into the same spot to the center, and then I'll make another one on the opposite side. So you can check how I do it. It's very easy. By just looking at how I do it, you'll be able to make the flower. So once you have 8 petals in total, now we're going to tie both tails at the back. So you have your own way of doing the embroidery much better, because I'm just new to embroidery. So if you know better, then you can do whatever way you want. So this is how I do it. Anyways, I'm going to add a fabric lining, so this will be hidden. So after tying both tails, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to cut off the yarn. And then the next step would be doing the center of the flower. So we will need the yellow yarn, and I think this is called the French knot. So this is how I do the French knot. So you're going to insert it into the center of the flower, and then leave about 2 to 3 inches of yarn at the bottom. And then you're gonna wrap the yarn twice and insert the needle back into the center. Alright, so to make the lining, you will need a fabric. Any fabric that matches the color of your project. So in this case, I have used a fabric which is almost the same color as my purse. And then you're going to cut out by getting the size of course, first you'll get the size of this purse right here. So you'll get the size of, get the measurement of this purse, which is about 6.5, and you're going to multiply it by 2, so you get 13. Now you get the length of the flap, which is 3, so you're gonna add that, so you have 16 inches in total. So that's the length of the fabric that you need to cut out. And then for the width, you're gonna get the width, so let's say it's about 4.5, so the width will be 4.5, so that's the width. And then you're going to add an 1/2 inch allowance on around the sides. So that's the length that you're going to have for your fabric lining, and it must have 1/2 inch allowance around. Alright, so once you cut out the fabric, so say this is the fabric that we have made. So once you get the dimension, this will be the right side. This is where the part of the fabric that will be seen when you open it. So this is the right side, and we're going to make the fold about 6.5 inches. It's the measurement of the pocket, and then we should have an allowance to make the fold here, because we're going to sew this first, and then after folding it, we're going to sew on this sides. Make sure you have an allowance as well on both sides. And then for this part, we're going to fold it, and then we're gonna sew later on to the flap. So that's how easy it is to make the fabric lining for this purse. So it's going to look like this once finished. Alright, so this is what it looks like after adding the snap fasteners, and you should be able to insert it before you sew this fabric lining. And if you don't have the snap fasteners, you can use any other buttons that you want. But if you're going to attach a big button, and you can just chain 6 to 10 chains here, attach the loop in here, so you can have a loop for your button. So the next thing that we're gonna do is we're going to sew this one. So I'm gonna start right here, and you can work an invisible stitch so that it won't be seen. You can hide this one. And that is how to make this Lazy Daisy's crossbody bag. So you can adjust the size that you want. And for the strap, I will be attaching the chain straps. Unfortunately, the chain straps that I bought is kind of short, and I want it to be quite long enough to make as a crossbody bag, but it's okay. I can just detach the chain strap and buy a longer one. So anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you like this video, and don't forget to subscribe.